Welcome to the Brand Forum. I am Jeremy Bloom, joined by my co-host Josh Palau. We are so excited for our next guest, Erika Lamoreaux. Erika.
Hi.
Erika is a seasoned marketer with over 20 years of experience across brand, media, agency, ad tech, and then brand again. She's collaborated with some of the world's most iconic brands in sectors like CPG, finance, retail, and tech. Currently, Erika leverages her media expertise at Workday, where she drives full funnel performance to enhance brand favorability, fuel pipeline growth, and tackle everything in between, all while mastering the art of doing more with less and getting it done yesterday. I love that. When not living and breathing modern marketing, Erika's a dedicated mom to 2 teenage girls, a passionate Girl Scout leader, a full-time soccer chauffeur, and an aspiring winemaker. She's also my longtime friend. Erika, we're so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for letting us read your bio. That was just so much fun.
You read it fantastically.
I had to. I mean, I could have done some fun quips, but it's just more fun reading your writing and then just adding some sound effects to it and having Josh smirk throughout the entire time. That's what makes this pod.
Love it.
So we're going to kick it off. Having 2 marketers and just sitting here listening to you two wax poetic as we go through some questions. Josh, why don't you kick it off just in terms of jumping right into it?
And yes, usually the smirk has to be a high factor on my end. So I try to bring that as much as I can. So it's funny because we talked a little bit earlier. And so like the genesis of this thing is this podcast is having a focus more on the brand marketers while understanding like, it's like the idea of like the little like catchphrase we came up with is sort of like, how do you build a brand in an ad tech driven world? And so like, not to start with the hardest of questions, but I think that's we always like to know like, how do you think about developing that compelling brand story in this increasingly automated world?
I think that's something that we're all challenged with right now, but ad tech is not a performance only thing, right? I mean, there is ad tech for brand. And if you're a brand marketer that isn't neck deep in ad tech, then you're missing something. I went from early days at Clorox CPG where we were so data starved, right? When was the last time you went to a CPG website to buy a CPG product, right? You go to the store, you go somewhere out, like you weren't coming to us. We didn't have any site data to tell you anything. So it really was all about branding. And we had to be smart brand marketers who knew how to find the consumer in the moment when they were interested and get them to take an action that we couldn't necessarily see. And that's when behind the scenes ad tech had to step in to help us piece together that story and hopefully find revenue at the end of the day. Now I'm more on the B2B side where we have so much data and we will die on that data if there's not brand marketers back there saying, hey, don't forget about, like, you have to fill that top of funnel. And I think everyone understands that. And part of being a good ad tech person today is bringing those technologies to the table for your brand that will help you prove the value of brand marketing. Like a big one, of course, that everyone's talking about is attention and how we can use attention and beyond just viewability to prove that someone saw this and it mattered down funnel.
I think it's like built like adding to that. It's like you talked about the B2B focus and then the CPG focus. How do you view brand and performance? Because I have very, very strong opinions on this thing. And I'm always intrigued by people who have played in both spaces, what their thoughts are.
I love this question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, it is still shockingly a chasm in between oftentimes brand and performance marketing. And that's where I'm finding kind of the most passion today in my career is figuring that piece out. In the B2B space, we live and die by the 95-5 rule. We know that 95% of our audience is not ready or willing to talk to us yet. And so that's where we need brands to support that 95%. And that's kind of fun, right? We get to go be creative marketers that break through the noise to make sure that 95% is being kept warm. So when the time is right, they can become that 5% that we're going to talk to with like the most lead gen, driving pipe, highly targeted performance marketing. Everything in between is, I still think, where we haven't figured it all out yet. Education, reputation, consideration. How do we get them from the top of funnel to the bottom of the funnel? When is the right time? Who is the right person? And what is the content that we're showing there to make that connection?
So, Erika, help us understand though, just how do you ensure that your brand remains authentic throughout that chasm. So when you've got the top of the funnel, when you've got the lower funnel, and you've got that 95.5 percentage, obviously you're always working with 100%. In this day and age, it's a very automated world. When we think through the human emotion that is attached to whether it's a company like Clorox, whether it's a company like Workday, whether it is other brands that you've been a part of or that you've worked on, help us just understand like what your thought process of just how to make brands stay authentic in this truly digitally autonomous world. Yeah.
There's so much noise, right? And the Super Bowl is an interesting one because talk about one moment when you can break through the noise, right, and get everybody. 99.9% of them as a B2B marketer don't buy my product at the end of the day, but at least everyone knows my brand. But talk about spray and pray. I need to make sure that I'm doing something to then get those people that I actually want to have engaged with my brand, understand who I am and what I do. It's that chasm, the education layer. For us today, I think a lot of that authenticity comes through storytelling and us not talking about ourselves, having other people talk about us in a way that adds validity to our message. So we can have a fun, punchy Super Bowl ad. Workday had one 2 years ago that was fantastic.
Yeah, I remember that one. It was good.
Yeah, we're rock stars. We're the rock stars of business. Fantastic.
Yeah, with Ozzy, I remember it. Yep.
Yeah. And Billy Idol's on LinkedIn, guys. You can go. He's mad about everyone calling themselves rock stars, but he's on LinkedIn talking about it. But what does that mean to a CFO who's trying to figure out the right financial management software for his company? Well, as long as we are top of mind when that moment comes, he can go do the research, or she can go do the research to find out more, and hopefully not want to necessarily come to Workday to find out more, but go to those trusted resources where our brand lives authentically and he can hear other people talk about us. So brand is a lot more about storytelling. And that storytelling is from people that are already our customers that love us and that want to talk about us. And so we rely heavily on those partnerships and our partner network to tell that authentic brand story as we move down from Aussie to like the real nuts and bolts of what our product is and why you should be interested in it.
Yeah, that was a great ad. I think it's also funny because there becomes some like category of people that are your consumer for this, for especially on the Workday front, that were Billy Idol fans growing up. I think you have to pick you have to probably look at, like you said, you had all this data looking at like, okay, what's our target audience? Let's map that to 80s rock people. And like that, it's a pretty wide number.
Where Rockstar 2.0 that came out this year went younger. Billy is still in it, but we had Travis Barker and Gwen Stefani, which is a little bit of a different generation as C-suites get younger, right? Like, and so there absolutely is that audience research to understand who resonates. There were definitely some Gen Zers in our office that were like, who's that? Watching. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. You don't need to know. As long as my audience it resonates with, then we're good.
Thanks for joining us on our very first episode of Comscore's Dishing with Divas. I'm Sam Mark. This week, I've got Rachel Gantz, Managing Director at Comscore, and we're here to talk eggflation. So, Rachel, eggflation is cracking our budgets. Do you have any advice on how to activate in this market to make the most of your dollar?
Thanks, Sam. Things are certainly spicy out there. During times of economic uncertainty, we really recommend the best practice of making your media dollars work for you. And there's really two ways to do this. One is that advertisers should lean more into programmatic and let the programmatic efficiency drive a more cost-efficient outcomes. And this is especially true with CTV. The second is to let more cost-effective audience targeting tactics take center stage. Comscore's ID-free predictive audiences are a great example where you're maintaining the performance, but doing so at a more cost-effective manner by leveraging wonderful technologies like contextual.
So through programmatic channels and strategic audience investment, you can slice the budget and not the flavor. And that was this week's Dish with Comscore's Data Divas. Thank you.
So what are the biggest challenges that you face just with your job, with your role, when wearing your marketing hat? You've been top of the funnel, you've been bottom of the funnel, you've been everywhere. Just with today's landscape, just when you're brand building, help our audience understand. For those that are on the vendor side, the account management side, the customer success, client services side, agencies listening, you've worn so many different hats
I mean, the measurement thread is always going to be key. And still, there's so many missing pieces in telling a full funnel story and attributing credit appropriately across the funnel, especially for brand builders, so that when it gets to end of quarter or end of fiscal and we are chasing our numbers, especially if you're reporting to the street and all of a sudden all strategy gets thrown out the window and we just need to hit our numbers, like there's a reality of I may be giving up brand dollars to meet pipeline goals. And I think many of the people that most people that I've run across in my career are smart enough to know that that's not the right thing to do. But there's a reality where sometimes we just have to do that. And sometimes you just have to make numbers, and it's incredibly frustrating. And it kind of results in some of these tense conversations at companies like, why are we doing this? Why did I just spend a year negotiating this? Why is this getting thrown out the window? Well, there's sometimes business realities that as marketers don't make sense to us that just kind of get in the way. And so a big part of my job is being like the internal evangelist to say like, cool, I get it. I'm playing along. But remember, next quarter, when things are when we have a little room to breathe, we're going to put money back into these things because everyone comes together and holds hands and understands that we're building a brand here. And we know the importance of feeding that funnel.
How often did they let you put the money back? Just curious.
Depends on how far in advance, depends on how long the planning cycle is, right? And I'm not that important, guys. I don't often get to come in the room and be like, I demand my budget back. But I do think most marketers that I've worked with are smart, and they know, and they know that even if we haven't told them exactly how each dollar invested in brand campaign is going to influence ROI down funnel, they believe that there is a direct connection, and obviously I hope people smarter than me are behind the scenes making that causal relationship between brand lift and ROI.
Yeah, I think, by the way, when you were mentioning, Jeremy, like the audience, I think for the sellers of the world, or the account people of the world, it's a really interesting part, because what you described, which is, so I've done a few in-housing projects, and we tend to take people from agencies and play people that hadn't worked on brand side, especially not in that same capacity. And the conversation, I have a set of speeches I always give, but the biggest one is we're going to make some decisions that might not make sense to you. Like you're gonna look at a campaign, you're gonna say, hey, that's returning a $2 ROI, but you're telling me to pause it, or you want me to spend more money on a product, in the consumer health world that's actually making less money for us. Like, I'm so confused. And you start to go through that whole point of like educating them on, if you understand our business, you understand why we have to do this somewhat irrational thing, because there's a street, there's shareholder value, there's also ensuring that we're prepared for the next quarter. So I think that's the part that gets missed in some of these conversations. And I think what I always try to help our partners with is helping them understand some of those dynamics. But it was probably the most jarring thing when I first went client side from agency side of like, wait, why would we do that? That doesn't make any sense. And then I would learn how profitable a product was, or why we had to do this for some other business reason. And it was like, oh, there's so much more than just a simple like, did that click turn into a conversion?
So right there, Josh, that is the balance of business intelligence and emotional intelligence. So call it BI and EQ coming together and being able to communicate that to your partners. So that's the importance of partnership. And so we've talked about this in past episodes. When you're working collaboratively with amazing partners, you're able to have those transparent conversations because you're in it for the long haul. Those of us that have been in this industry for a long time, we're in it for the long haul. So Erika, with that, when you think about just what's taking place in our industry, when you think about AI, all the ML advancements, the generative AI advancements, how is it transforming the ways that brands connect with their audiences? This isn't relevant specific to the brand that you're on, just in general across the board. I'd love to hear your 2 cents as a marketer.
Yeah, I don't know yet, right? I still see so much AI. I mean,
I'm so glad somebody said that.
Big high five.
Does anyone? I use it, right? I use it to help make my day easier as a marketer, when I need to like write something or do something. We are leveraging it as a tool to make our lives easier, faster. And then I think the end goal should be to be able to get the right message in front of the right consumer quicker and more often, and to help build that authenticity. But AI, as soon as you get it wrong, you get it so wrong. And then you've broken all of that trust. Like you see someone who's clearly an AI generated image and you're like, oh, this is all fake. And then you start all over again. It's like we still have so long to go before we can really, as marketers, I think, leverage AI to its full extent to help us have more authentic or more personalized conversations with our consumers. That said, we have integrated AI into the product that we're selling in my current job, to really be a differentiator. So there's kind of my marketing hat and how I'm using it to make my life easier and hopefully connect with my consumers better. And then there's actually what I'm selling to those consumers that will hopefully make their lives easier as well. So it's real and you can't ignore it. And I can't put my head in the sand. I just haven't seen the value beyond kind of the day-to-day things that are easier because I can leverage AI here and there. So yeah, I'm curious to watch it. Going back to our point around like you still have to report to the street, and I may make decisions that don't make sense to you. AI isn't necessarily going to solve that problem for me, right? Like I still am going to have to be explaining to my agency team that like we're going to do this thing that goes against all of the machine learning, that goes against all of the media best practices because I need to deliver X. And so that human intelligence piece obviously is going to remain key.
Yeah. And I think we never really talked about with other people we've met with about how they're using AI as part of the differentiator. Because what I find where this like another interesting aspect of where you sit is, by the way, as a consumer at multiple companies of Workday, it's great. And I think there's something about, but I have no say so in what we use. But I think what you're building in there and the story you're sharing me, I feel like it's like, but I'm calling my HR teams less. I'm asking less questions, and so I feel like there's the value of that AI piece that's got nothing to do with the brand storytelling. But if it's a part of that unique proposition, I think that's what drives it through to the people who do make these final decisions, and that's what I find kind of interesting in those spaces.
It's hard as a brand marketer to break through when everyone's talking about it. It's almost, because at the brand level, when you're not understanding the nuances of how AI is driving our platform, and I'm up here just saying like fueled by AI. I mean, so is everybody else. What does that mean? Like, how do you break through to actually help the consumer understand what does differentiate the product? And again, we're in the chasm of how do we get you from I'm aware of it to, oh, I understand how this is going to make my life easier, and then into the pipe.
Erika, when you're not fueled by AI, what fuels Erika Lamoreaux? Help us understand some of your passions outside of MarTech, AdTech, media, SaaS, and what we do for a living. Tell us more about just winemaking, perhaps.
Yeah,
Girl Scout troop leader.
Wine and Girl Scout cookies. I've had such a weird career path. I've met such amazing people like Jeremy. We've known each other for a few years now, and I landed. I started kind of weird e-com and went small agency, and then went to CPG brand side, and then ended up at ad tech, and then big agency, and now here I am back on the brand side. And I've run into so many interesting people throughout that process. I've had 2 kids. Learned what it's like to be a mom, a working mom, and how to prioritize, my life outside of work. Now, I still feel like when I was at Clorox, I felt like I was the youngest person at Clorox, and now I'm pretty much the oldest person anywhere I go, and I don't know where that happened. But I find myself oftentimes talking to, the younger people on my teams about how this is just marketing. Nobody dies. It doesn't mean it's not important. It just means that it's okay to take risks. It's okay to have a life outside of work. It's okay to make mistakes because you learn from them. All the things that we've heard, but it's hard when you're 24 and you make a mistake and feels like your life is over. And I'm like, you're fine. I have a soccer game to get to. So we'll deal with this tomorrow, and trying to create those balances. So yes, I love my daughters. I love leading their Girl Scout troops. I think building tomorrow's women leaders is incredibly important. And it's a lot more than selling cookies, though I will have cookies for sale. Actually, tomorrow we're picking up our order. So for those Bay Area people, I'm coming for you. But no, my older daughter's in high school, and she's talking about, earning her gold award and putting it on her college applications, which is terrifying, but also incredibly, I think, inspiring. They're tackling big challenges. She hosted a cybersecurity workshop for teen girls for her silver award. And so bringing some of my work expertise and work connections into Girl Scouts has been fun. And again, it's a lot more than cookies. And then when I was in the depths of COVID despair, waiting to figure out my next move career-wise and trying to homeschool my kids, I decided to do something for me and went back to school and earned my winemaking certificate at UC Davis, which for those on the West Coast know that that's the wine school. And I had to take organic chemistry as a 40-year-old woman who hadn't been to school in a few years and I was really proud of myself. So I'm a winemaker without a winery. I can tell you all about the chemistry and the viticulture, and anything you want to talk about wine related comes in handy at work events, because they always hand me the wine list. And in water there is bacteria, and in wine there is wisdom.
My gosh, I was going to try and pull like a last question, but I don't know that we can.
No. Let's
It's
end on that.
Friday, and I already have a bottle in the fridge.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love what I do for work, and I love the people that I work with, and I love being able to go have a glass of wine with them.
You were such a smart and talented, wise soul. We appreciate you being here, being one of our earliest guests. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on. Thank you, Erika.
I'm so excited for this, guys. Thank you for doing this. I can't wait to see what comes next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Erika. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. Until the next episode of the Brand Forum. Bye.